What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of R. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, 31 Days of Horror Volume 7, Day 11, 7-11. Ha! Yes, we're open 24 hours here. Alright, so, enough of that shit. We are going to take it back all the way to the 1930s. You know, like I like to do a film from each decade. I try to do silent ones, but at the same time, I really kind of don't, because silent films are actually hard to review. I feel like there's not really a lot to say. So this year, I'm going 30s all the way to present. So this is my 30s pick. And it's a film that I have seen, but I'm not entirely sure if I've ever seen the fully uncut version, even though I did have the DVD that came out in the early 2000s. I'm not sure if I ever watched it or not. But anyways, 1933's The Ghoul, starring one of my all-time favorites, Mr. Boris Karloff. Boris Karloff to me is like one of the most tantalizing actors ever. A lot of people, you know, they look at Boris Karloff and they see Frankenstein and things like that, but he was so much more, man. He did so many memorable movies and characters and stuff like that. He was a really, really well-trained actor. And it shows in a film like this too. So basically, the premise of The Ghoul is Boris Karloff is a dying Egyptologist. Is that what they call them? Egyptologist or something like that. Anyways, so he's dying, and so he goes and purchases this very rare stone off this guy that actually stole it out of an Egyptian tomb. Anyways, he believes that this gem will give him like eternal peace, and to appease the gods, it'll make him rest in peace, you know, kind of thing, like for eternally. Anyways, so he's on his dying bed, and he tells the servant that, you know, he wants the servant to basically tape it to his hand because he doesn't want it to go anywhere. He doesn't want it to get stolen before, you know, from his grave and stuff like that. And he specifically says, he goes, if it does get stolen, I'm going to come back on the first full moon, and I'm going to wreak havoc and take it back, kind of thing. In a really, really great scene. So ultimately, Boris Karloff's character dies, and before he kind of gets buried and stuff like that, the servant actually steals the gem and kind of sets off this chain of events. So now, when the full moon comes, he actually resurrects and then wreaks havoc to get his stone back, kind of thing. So my thoughts on the film. To me, this movie right here is like one of the very first like actual zombie films. Like, it feels like an actual zombie film, because if you know anything about like early zombie films, like a lot of it was like magic zombies or voodoo zombies, until Romero's 68, when it was like the dead were rising for whatever reason. The actual dead were just rising. This one right here, he like just believes so much. It's kind of like he believes so much in the eternal life that he can almost resurrect himself. Like, but he was actually dead and comes back. So it's kind of an interesting premise for 1933. It's a very dark toned film. Now, my overall thoughts on the film, Boris Karloff is so fucking good in this movie. Like, in the opening scene where he's dying on his bed and he's explaining and shit like that, there's actually a quote on the back. It even says, when the full moon strikes the door of my tomb, I will come back, you hear? I will come back to kill. And he says that, and he says it so convincingly, you're just like, oh shit, goosebumps. It's really damn good. So you get this awesome like opening like 50-minute scenes with Boris Karloff, and then of course he passes away, and then it jumps to like his solicitor who has contacted his nephew and niece to basically, you know, go and settle his estate and stuff like that. And so the three of them, plus the niece brings one of her friends. She's basically the comic relief in the film. So they get to the house where the servant's there, and actually the guy that sold him the gem is there, and there's like a couple other characters and stuff like that. There's a lot of dialogues and exposition. There's like kind of like a subplot with like relationship that's kind of brewing and things like that. But it is overall pretty entertaining because, you know, you have the servant that's kind of freaking out, like, you know, is this real? Like, you know, this full moon's coming. Is my master coming back, you know, from the dead and stuff like that? And ultimately he does come back, and it kind of sets off this whole thing and stuff. And it's actually quite entertaining. I know a lot of people have always said this movie kind of falters in the middle of the film because, it's early filmmaking where you have this great idea and then you kind of pad the time in the middle, and then Karloff comes back with about 35 minutes left, and everything with Karloff in the end of the film is so fantastic. The way he's walking, his mannerisms, just the way he's projecting himself. He's so damn good at playing these monsters that it's like believable, and he looks cool. Even like the makeup on him looks really damn cool and stuff. So, but yeah, so like the middle part of the film it's decent, but you're anticipating Karloff coming back the entire time because of the opening scene. Like, he's so damn intense, so believable, that you don't even really care what's happening in the middle. You're wanting that full moon to fucking happen so Karloff can come back into this film and wreak havoc and tear some shit up. And that's exactly what happens. And I'm not really going to give too much away, but it's got a really dark atmosphere. I love the house that they shot in. Some of the characters are better than others. The comic relief, a lot of people I've seen say that she's really awesome. She's kind of annoying at times, to be honest. She's a little bit over the top. And I'm not really too fond of having the relationship stuff in here. You guys know me. I'm not like the biggest relationship person, even though I am married. So that stuff kind of bogs it down a tiny bit and stuff like that. But overall, the movie is actually really entertaining, and Karloff is the reason for this. Like, I can't even see anyone else really playing the role as intense that he does in this. It's really, really good. And it's got some moments in it where you're like, 1933? Holy shit. Like, that's actually pretty crazy. Like, there's a self-mutilation scene in this film with Boris Karloff that's fucking phenomenal. Like, I'm thinking, again, 1933, I'm like, damn, that's pretty crazy. So a little bit of backstory about The Ghoul. The Ghoul was a film that came out in 1933, and it was the very first British horror film with sound. So that's actually kind of an interesting thing about it too. So it got re-released like a couple years later and stuff like that, and then it all of a sudden was thought to be lost. Like, it just kind of disappeared, and so a lot of the versions were like a Czechoslovakian print that was actually cut by like 7 or 8 minutes, and it was around for like 50 years, and every copy that you saw on TV and stuff like that was always this like shorter version of the film that basically omitted a couple of the murder scenes and a couple other things and stuff like that. It was like 8 minutes of footage. Then they found a copy somewhere in the 80s, and then hence the DVD that came out in the early 2000s of the fully uncut version. This is, of course, the fully uncut version from Network. It's a British UK releasing company. They specify in like British films. Called Network, and it's a really nice print too. Like, the print on this is really fantastic. It looks awesome for 1933. The sound's great. Everything about this is really, really good. So it's kind of got an interesting backstory. So that's why I was kind of explaining that I'm not sure if I'd ever seen this full uncut version before, because I hadn't watched my DVD that I can think of, but I'd seen the movie before in the past. And I'm assuming it obviously was like a TV, not the TV cut, but the Czechoslovakian cut of the film, which was like 7-8 minutes, but I can't remember. I watched so many damn movies in my life, I can't remember every damn detail. I'm sure you guys can't either. So it does have an interesting history, considering it was considered to be like fucking lost at one point. And to find a pristine print is incredible after all those years later to release this and stuff like that, or to use that print to release this and stuff. So, yeah, The Ghoul, man. Boris Karloff, absolutely phenomenal. After he saved Universal in the early 30s, he returns to the UK to do The Ghoul. This thing really did bomb. It fucking bombed, I think, man. I think it bombed in the UK. I think it bombed also in the US and stuff like that. I don't really know why, because even at this time, like, horror films were still doing really, really well. You know, there was a market for it, and Karloff is really damn good. But overall, really dark film, really, really great and underrated performance by Boris Karloff. I never hear anybody talk about this movie. It's really interesting because it's so close to Frankenstein and The Mummy and all those classic films that everybody knows and loves. 1933, like, it's really incredible some of the things that happen in this film that weren't censored. I mean, this is obviously way before the video nasty shit in the early 80s with Thatcher and all those fucking other morons that were censoring shit. But, you know, I could see them, if this movie came out in 1979, 1980, even censoring the shit out of this too. They're like, fuck, that's too hardcore. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, by our standards, we're so desensitized to things that it's not really that. But I mean, still, you look it back in 1933 and you're like, holy shit. But it's worth watching. It's a really damn good film. Like I said, the middle part of the film is a little bit slower, but still very interesting. And so I'm going to come in at an 8.5 out of 10 for The Ghoul. I like the premise. I think it's really interesting that he's actually dead and just resurrects without any magic or voodoo. It's straight belief. It's just straight belief. So in a sense, he's a zombie. He's actually a fucking zombie. Had to wear the zombie shirt for this. Representing Fulcher today. So, But yeah, 8.5 out of 10 for the Ghoul. Like I said, the edition here is really nice. It comes with a book. It's got some really interesting reading in there and stuff like that. It's got some pictures on the inside. So I don't really have a lot of network releases, but I do want to check out more of the releases because they, like from this is a good release. Very, very nice print. So, but yeah, that's going to do it for day 11, guys. And I will check you guys tomorrow. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's obviously going to be a newer film because I go back and forth. So I'll check you guys then. Hope you guys enjoy the review. Leave your comments down below if you guys have anything to say about the film. You know, I like to read and I have been responding to everything. So just keep the comments coming and I'll keep responding to them. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it. See you guys tomorrow. And as usual,